Hey everyone, Mr. Drake here. We are on to Unit 4. This is the last of the ancient River Valley civilizations. We're going to be talking about China as we start off the new unit.
So by the time this video is over, you should be able to describe the geography of China and explain why its ancient civilizations were so isolated from others. Also be able to list the ways in which Chinese civilizations interacted with people around them. You should also be able to explain how challenges that were related to geography strengthened those ancient Chinese civilizations. Also define or identify these terms nomads and the three very important geographic features, the Huanghe River, the Yangtze River, and Manchuria.
Now, of all the ancient civilizations that we've talked about in this class so far, China is by far the most isolated, both by distance from India and Mesopotamia and Egypt, but also by geographical barriers as well. The Himalayan mountains are off to the west, making it very tough to get much further than that. To the north and to the west, you also have very large, expansive, brutal deserts that are very, very hard to get through. And then to the south, there's a very dense array of jungles that prevent anyone from getting through. So that area kind of there by the coast and located on the rivers is where you're going to find most of ancient Chinese civilization. Now, despite the isolation, Chinese did have contact with outside groups. Some of it was because they initiated contact with neighboring peoples for trade. They did explore as far west as almost all the way to the Middle East as civilization progressed. But usually other people came to them. China is very famous for being invaded by numerous peoples over the years. And in ancient times, most of those invaders were nomads. They were barbarians. Nomads are people who move around. They don't have one place that they settle and live. They just move following food sources and things like that. Most of the invaders came from the north. That's the Mongols, who we're going to talk about later in this unit. Some of the invasions were successful, some weren't. Over time, you may be aware, the Chinese got so tired of having the Mongols invade that they built a humongous wall along their northern border to keep invading peoples out, which we now know, of course, as the Great Wall of China. Now, just like with every other civilization we've covered so far, rivers are the most important geographic feature to sustaining civilization and people's way of life. There are two rivers in China. The Huanghe is one very important one. It's also known as the Yellow River, and that's how it's actually labeled on the map there. And there's also the Yangtze River, which is further south. This area is where most people in ancient China lived. They lived along the rivers because the rivers supported agriculture. Manchuria, which is up northeast there on the map, and Mongolia, which is further north, are a lot more rugged, a lot more mountainous. The people that lived there didn't farm, either because they didn't know how or didn't have the land or the water necessary. So those people were nomadic and moved around, and those are the people that most commonly invaded the civilizations along the rivers to the south. Now, the more advanced civilizations in ancient China arose along the Huanghe River or the Yellow River. That's where people began to figure out farming and set up more advanced governments and cities. The Huanghe is known as the Yellow River because it literally looks yellow. If you look back at the very beginning of this video at the title slide, you'll see the yellowish hue that the water actually has. And that's because of yellow silt or soil that gets deposited into the river and carried along towards the coast as the river flows along. And as more and more soil accumulates in the water due to the laws of displacement you've learned about in science over the years probably, the water level rises as the soil kind of builds up underneath, and that causes the flooding that causes a lot of starvation and destruction that we've talked about in the other river valley civilizations too. And as a result, the Huanghe River, or the Yellow River, is known as the River of Sorrows. Government in these areas, it's believed, arose because people banded together to build dikes and build dams to try to avert the flooding that caused so many problems in this civilization.